toucans are the largest species of toucan. They live, mainly, in semi-open habitats of South America, such as the woodlands and savannas. Taco toucans are omnivores that feed on fruits, insects and bird eggs.
Okay, that was a really nice video introducing our new series of books, World of Science. There are 5 books now available for purchase and with a 15% discount as well. So welcome if you've just joined us for this exciting panel discussion entitled Dive into the World of Science, Inspiring Children to Explore. So without further ado, let me hand over the time to Juliana, our moderator for today. Juliana, please.
Thank you, Ruth, for introducing us. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a webinar brought to you by World Scientific Education on the launch of World of Science. So I am Juliana Chan. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Singapore headquartered Wild Type Media Group, which covers research and development news from the Asian region. We are also an associate company of World Scientific, and so I'm very pleased to be here today sharing this session with all of you. So in particular, our discussion will revolve around the World of Science, which is a series of 5 science comic books, as Ruth has described, that incorporates augmented reality in learning. The topics that are covered in these books include animals, insects, sea creatures, the human body, plants, and fungi, or if you prefer, fungi to some people. Using an app to scan the page that has an augmented reality logo, the reader is able to see content come alive. And these include 3-dimensional models of animals, videos, sounds, and even pop quizzes. So we have assembled today 4 industry experts in education, and they are also parents themselves. Myself, I am a parent of 2 children. And we will be all sharing our views and experiences in early childhood education. Without any order, we have Mr. Kelvin Ang. He's the founder of Cheekiemonkies, a parenting blog that you might like to take a look at. So Kelvin calls himself a daddy blogger, very cute. And he's also the author of Got Kids, Go Where. So Kelvin, welcome. Next, we have Mr. Edmund Lim, a former primary school principal and now the Senior Vice President at CES Education. This is a company that manages and owns brands such as Invictus International School and the Repton Schoolhouse. Hi, Edmund. Welcome to our chat. Third on our panel is Mr. Gerald Cai, Managing Director of SnapLearn, which uses augmented reality in learning. Gerald is a veteran of the education industry, and he has teaching experience and also management of publishing and learning units in multinational corporations. He'll be sharing with us how augmented reality can be used in the learning experience. And last but not least, we have our very own Miss Ruth Wan. She is the publisher of World Scientific Education, and also the author of Timmy and Tammy, a series of books for preschoolers. Importantly to me, Ruth was able to teach her 2 sons and her daughter to read fluently by the age of 4. I might need some tips from you here with regards to my son, who I'm still trying to teach to read. So welcome to our panel, 4 of you experts. I'm just going to launch right into it and ask our panelists, how can parents, since all of us here are parents, help to instill the love of science in children from a young age? Admittedly, we have educational experience, but here I would like to ask all of you to put on the educator hat. Perhaps I'm just going to invite Kelvin to get the ball rolling. Kelvin, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this webinar today. I think if you follow my blog, I think what I do with my kids most of the time is I like to take them outdoors because I believe that I always believe that play is always the best form of learning, and that's where they get to learn best and most outdoors. And if you have been following my Instagram, my social media, I've been bringing them out to nature walks, hikes on nature trails, because this is, I think, where that both my wife and I can really impart the love of nature to them and expose to them, the really wondrous world of, be it insects or be it some of the animals or plant species that we see. And this, I find that really intrigues them, especially my youngest, who is P5 this year, because she gets to see it for herself, her real eyes. And when we head back home, that's where she, Googles for more information about the plants or the insects that we really have seen outdoors. And because I'm fortunate to have received the set of the 5 books beforehand, and I find that especially there's one book that's on insects that it really supplements what we have seen, and because it's presented in a comic format, it makes it very easy for her to understand, to read, and as well as the AR element brought in, she's able to even learn even more through the aid of videos as well as the AR technology.
Thanks very much, Kelvin, for sharing. A very hands-on parent indeed. Next, we have Edmund. How do you, as a parent, help your kids learn about science from a young age?
Thank you, Juliana. Well, I think there are different ways, but like I agree with Kelvin, one powerful way, it starts with the letter P, which is through play. Because when children play, they have fun, they are excited, they engage. Playing can come in different ways, right? Kelvin mentioned about playing outdoors. Another way can also be to play indoors. Playing indoors can happen in simple ways, right? It can happen even through cooking. Through cooking, children can learn more about science, right? About mixing, about ingredients, about the nature of physics, and also chemistry in that sense when they cook. So I think very much through play and engagement. So in that way, when children are excited, when they play, they can then explore. And when they explore the world around them, it could be even through plants, indoor plants, outdoor plants. So in that sense, getting them engaged through this exploration. And when they explore and they are interested, they will want to examine further, right? And then one good way will also be through books, because I mean, you can't physically explore everything, right? Like I enjoyed this one of the books on aquatic animals. They talk about narwhals, right? So in that sense, by reading, they actually expand their understanding of the world around them. So I think we can start in simple ways by getting them to play and be excited, and then after that, giving them a chance to explore, and then help them to examine different areas of science and explore the beautiful world around them, and also learn new things that they may not be exposed to beyond their physical environment. So I think play and reading are powerful ways to engage.
Thank you, Edmund. Play and reading, he says. Moving on, we have Gerald. Gerald, how do you incorporate science in your interactions with your children?
Right. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be on this panel. Really look forward to learning from everyone. So I'm a parent of 2 kids, aged 8 and 5. So my approach is that I just always encourage them to be curious. I mean, kids are naturally curious, but you, as a parent, you sometimes have the urge to either, because you're busy or something, you say, okay, wait for a while, I'll tell you later, or just do it, all this kind of action. I mean, it's very natural. So I need to fight my own natural tendency to either stop them or to give them the answer in anything. So I learned through the years to be more thoughtful in terms of getting them to be engaged and curious about everything. An example, just yesterday, I was just driving, we are passing through the car park gantry. So my boy is now starting to learn a bit of the coding. So I just asked him, how does the gantry counter knows how many lots are left in the car park? And then so he starts to give a few answers, and then I try to guide him along, not giving him the answer, but just guiding him along in the thought process. So I think for me, it's mirroring what Kelvin and Edmund said. It's about bringing science into everyday life. You know, it's everywhere. It's all around us. So there are so many things that the kids are naturally curious, but how do we not dampen the fire, but fuel it further? I think that is my approach.
I really love the example that you gave of using just a car park gantry to talk about coding and mathematical questions like that. Thank you, Gerald, for the idea. And of course, we have Ruth, our publisher, and also a mom of 2, or is it 3? Please share with us how you incorporate science when playing with your children.
Yeah, I have 3 kids.
3.
They are 2 boys and a girl.
Mm.
I'm a 2-time PSLE mom in that my 2 boys are now have survived. They're still alive and they're in secondary school, and I'm still alive. And my daughter's in P5. So yeah, I definitely resonate with everything that has been said, especially with Kelvin, because I'm also kind of like an outdoors person, or I loved to take my kids outdoors. And in fact, that's how all my books came about. Timmy and Tammy, go to Sentosa, Singapore Flyer, Botanic Gardens. It's all based on reality. We were out twice a week, on weekends and so on. And I think just to kind of crystallize, what everybody's saying, I think that one thing that the outdoors does, or even the indoors, but how do you incorporate science into all of that? I mean, the first step for me is that these are really opportunities to make observations. So in terms of science, to me, there's 3 steps. There's observation, there's interpretation, and there's application, right? So when you go outdoors, when you're looking at new things and new experiences with your kids, observation it just comes naturally. It doesn't have to be like you purposely go and create a moment, go to a classroom, have an enrichment class, but you can actually have natural observations out there looking at leaves and plants and birds and water and cars and gantries and so on and so forth. So having those observations will then naturally, hopefully, lead to conversation. And that is, to me, the kind of the good part, where you can bring in the science, you can bring in the maths, you can bring in the English, just through conversing with your kids. And as we were talking, I just remember, when my kids were younger, they were always asking why. I don't know whether anybody has this experience. These young kids, they're always asking why. And then sometimes, because we are all maybe we just want to give them the shortest answer, or we just want to give them the answer, so that we can move on to our task or something. But as Gerald said, yeah, sometimes it's important. Here's something interesting. Just say to them, why do you think? Like they ask me, why is it like that? I say, what do you think? What do you think? Why do you think it's like that? Why do you think it's like that? And so that actually leads to the interpretation part. So you've got your observation. Now you've got your hypothesis. You're asking kids to think, well, what do you think? What's your guess? Why do you think it's like that? Why do you think this happened? Or why do you think the plant is like that? Or why do you think the fruit is like that? And so you're getting them to think about, maybe I have a hypothesis. I have a guess, basically like you're guessing. And that's also part of science, isn't it? It's the discovery and the exploration and the thinking through things. And then, of course, after that, you can come in with the answer, or you can maybe say, oh, let's read a book about it, or let's maybe go to the internet, or let's go to the internet together, not just the kid himself, but let's do something together to find out more. And so then, comes the answer, or like comes the result, or whatever it is. So to me, all of these things can happen very naturally in a parenting context or family context. And I feel like it's actually better, or maybe on par with, sending your kids to a class, a 45-minute workshop or so on. Yeah, so why not try this method of just having natural conversations, natural observations, natural guessing sessions with your kids. And I think that will just help to keep their spirit of curiosity alive. Yeah.
Thanks for the very nice sharing, Ruth. As a mom myself, I know how much my kids love to ask why, and sometimes you just want to give them the shortest answer. Absolutely, I understand, but there's so much richness that you can provide them by just providing a longer answer, allowing them to go from observation, as you mentioned, to hypothesis and interpretation. So thank you to all my 4 speakers for sharing with me as a parent. Well, we're moving now on to, a little bit more about formal education. So for this question, I would like to direct it to our former principal, Edmund. So, this gets a little bit touchy because when we go to school, science starts to become a subject that we must score well in. You know, we must pass, get an A or A star. And as an educator myself, I must tell you, students are always looking for the model answer, the right answer. And it ceases to become something of wonderment, you know. So how can educators, teachers like yourself keep an interest in learning about science alive once they start proper science education in primary school, primary 3 specifically, and get tested for it? Edmund, please.
Thank you, Juliana. Well, earlier on I mentioned about fun, right, and also the world around us. So generally, what we would like to encourage our children also to see science as an inquiry, like what Ruth mentioned just now, or observing. So of course, inquiry starts with observing, and then asking questions, like what Gerald mentioned. So I think in schools, what we encourage our children to do, all right, of course, we want them to excel in different subjects, including science. We will also like our children to appreciate, to inquire, and have this appreciation of the world around them. And through this, the knowledge and understanding gained through, it could be through experiments, it could be through lessons or certain activities, be able to appreciate and understand science in daily life. So we're looking at 3 different areas: science in daily life, and then we extend it to science and the environment, which can include the larger world around them, and science in society. And through these 3 aspects of science in daily life, science in society, and science and the environment, we hope that children will actually deepen their knowledge and understanding, and as well as their skills, right? And in addition to all these areas, we also would like them to develop positive attitudes towards learning, as well as towards the world around them. So now, more than just teaching them about knowledge, we would like them to care for the environment, to have a positive attitude towards nature, towards 3 R's. So in that sense, the aim is actually to have a more holistic approach towards the learning of science. At the same time, of course, there's still the reality of exams, right? So in that sense, what we would like to do is also not just help the children to enjoy science, we would like them to also engage them in the scientific inquiry, and beyond that, to help them to apply science. Of course, application of science can come in different ways. It can come in through the written form, the exams, through the experiments, or even through discussions. So in that sense, this multifaceted way of learning can actually help our students appreciate science and have this love, a lifelong love for learning and a lifelong love for science, which is so relevant to all of us. Yeah.
Edmund, you know, of course, that was your previous life, but now with some of these brands like Repton and Invictus, do your schools have any kind of specific or unique pedagogy to encourage science outside of exams?
Certainly. We actually, for example, for our young ones, we encourage a lot of play, purposeful play. And through purposeful play, they actually discover about science. So it's actually a plan, but we make it look incidental sometimes. Through play, we lead them, we scaffold the questions, like what Gerald was talking, right? Sometimes it's not just giving them the answer, it's asking them questions, leading them on, helping them to discover and realize, hey, I'm able to form this hypothesis, this understanding of this theory of how things can be. Even if it's wrong, it's fine, right? But it's this process of thinking and exploring. So that's through play. The other aspect will be helping them to appreciate how science is so interlinked in an interdisciplinary manner. So in the schools that we are managing currently, we promote interdisciplinary learning. So we link science with technology, with engineering, and of course, math also, the STEM, and also get them to write about it. So some people may not be good at memorizing formulas, right? But some of them may be good at writing stories, or little stories, or experiences, or journaling. So that's the arts aspect. So helping them to be able to integrate and learn about science in an interdisciplinary manner. And sometimes children's interest in science may not be immediately linked to that science concept initially. It could be linked to certain activities, that could be linked to sports. And through sports, like they learn to appreciate about speed, acceleration, and then realize, hey, science is not just theory. Science is very fun. It comes alive. I can apply it when I'm learning sports. I can apply it when I'm engaged in my other ECA or extracurricular or CCA activities too.
Thank you for sharing, Edmund. I think experiential learning, play-based learning is truly the way to engage our young people in our lives and to make them love science as much as all of us certainly do on this panel. Okay, I'm just going to move on to include some of our writers in the room. So I want to ask them, because here we have a science comic series. As anyone will agree, we're not tested on science comics at PSLE or in primary school. So I would like to find out what you think the world of science, a science comic series, can do to complement the efforts of our educators in school. Specifically, are any of the concepts that are being taught in school mirrored or represented in these books, in these comics? And would it help to reinforce, and help the kids appreciate what they're learning in school better? I think for that, I must go straight to Ruth and hear from her on her thoughts.
Hi, yeah. Oh. Can you hear me? Yep, okay. Yeah,
very well, Ruth.
Definitely, when we conceived of this series, we definitely were thinking about, the parents and the children in mind. And so, in fact, this series contains themes that are covered by the Singapore Science Syllabus. In fact, I think all or most of the topics in the science syllabus is being covered by this series. Now, you only see that we have 5 books, but actually we have a grand plan. So we have about 20 to 25 books that are going to be coming out. And so that's how we're going to cover everything. So it's not that this first 5 books, covers everything, but there's actually many, many more books coming out over maybe the next year or so, or 2 years and so on. So we made, I would say, a deliberate effort to make sure that the themes are being covered, and not just for Singapore Science Syllabus, but actually also for the Cambridge Science Syllabus for those parents in education, international school, for the kids in international school, and so on. So yeah, how would these books help your kids? I mean, for myself, as we've all mentioned, when something becomes an examinable subject, it tends to the mentality, the mindset is, oh, it's going to be boring. I'm going to have to, memorize a lot of facts, and then they want me to write the answer in a certain way, right? Okay, so like I must have certain science phrases, I must put on my science hat and so on. And so I think that a series of comics will definitely help to just keep that fire alive, in terms of passion and just general interest in science topics. Because after all, as parents, on the one hand, we do want our kids to be exam ready and to do well, but at the same time, I think especially nowadays, right, in these times, more parents are understanding that in order to ensure that your kid is ready, for the workplace, ready for the new 21st century, like ready for all the challenges ahead, you need more than just knowledge, and you need more than just memorization of facts. So I think that something like a science comics that is based on the Singapore Science Syllabus, will definitely be a double advantage, where you will be learning, about the topics that you're going to be examined for. But at the same time, it's done in such an interesting way. So what I personally love, about the series, of course, I've given it to my kids to read, and they love it. They're almost addicted to it. They can't stop reading it because it's story-based. So instead of having just your science notes, in your science textbook, you have a series of stories. If you haven't actually looked into the book, it's 80 pages, and each story is maybe only 4 pages, 6 pages, 8 pages. It's short. It's not going to be very long. You have to pay attention for a long time. But so very, very short stories with snippets of information weaved in a story-based format, like an adventure format. So I personally have enjoyed, working on this series and my kids as well.
That's wonderful to hear. So I want to move on to another aspect of writing, which is blogging. And for that, we need to talk to Kelvin, our resident daddy blogger. Kelvin, before you answer, I'm sure you communicate with many parents all the time. You either DM them or they DM you or comment on your blog, and you must be hearing all their practical stories of or requests for help. Do you have that kind of interactions with parents about how they have tried to use all sorts of other kind of enrichment or writing material to support their children's learning in school? What has been your experience so far? I would love to hear.
Yep. Thanks for the question, Juliana. Yes, I think I've been blogging for close to 16 years, actually more than 16 years, as old as my eldest child. And yes, the most usual common questions or messages that I receive from parents is, how do I get my child to either to read more or to because reading really encompasses almost everything, right? If you love to read, most probably you like to read up on certain more topics, and naturally perhaps your command of the language grows, and that's will help you in science, math, and even English. So yeah, I think the love for reading, to cultivate the love of reading, and by extension the love of learning, I think ranks the top question among all parents, almost all parents that I come across. And usually I tell them, and if I can move specifically to this set of science books, is that I think this set of books actually targets kids who are I would say who are not natural readers. Because if you're going to give kids who already love reading, like for example for my daughter, she loves reading, she can read a book in one sitting. But compared to my boys who don't really like to read, you give them a book and they say, wow, so many words, and then they get put off immediately. But if you present to them in this in a comic format, or like what Ruth has mentioned, in a story that engages them, I think really it really can cultivate the love for reading. And because of that, it can also pique their interest or curiosity into various scientific topics. And I think that's the greatest challenge, and also the greatest advantage that this series has, because it really gives the opportunity for parents to introduce reading in a very easy manner, in a very easy to learn, easy to love way, so that kids can really embrace this naturally, rather than you say, nah, I give you this book and make sure you read, then later I test you. That's what usually Asian parents do, right? But I think for kids nowadays it doesn't work anymore, because I think because they are brought up on the premise of instant gratification. You don't know anything, you go Google lah, you go YouTube, you get the answer immediately, right? And precisely this book, the series of books, really gives them the answers in a very fun manner, and it really also challenges or makes them questions why is this so that they can take their smartphones to use the AR feature, or even go and search for more videos on the topic. So I think this is really complements and supplements whatever they have learned in school, and I think it really will engage them, and hopefully it would cultivate their love for science even more.
Thanks for sharing. I'm sure with all the 16 or more years of experience, you have met all kinds of parents with all kinds of, educational needs from Singapore and overseas. So I just want to remind our audience that we will be taking 1 or 2 questions from you. If you have any questions for our speakers, even one specific speaker, please feel free to share them in the chat function. I'll be happy to ask them on your behalf. But before we get to that, so please go ahead and ask questions in the chat function while I ask another question to our speaker, my last one, which is directed at Gerald. As you know, this book is not just a book series or comic book series. It has something very, very special embedded in it, and that would be augmented reality. So Gerald is responsible for that. Thank you very much. And how does the augmented reality component in the book series help to bring science alive? You know, Gerald, before you answer, please also share with us some of your experiences using alternative forms of, digital media to complement learning in previous job experiences. I think we would like to just understand how AR and, the combination of offline and online learning can help us as educators and parents.
Yeah. How much time you have? So
a lot of time.
question.
Please, happy to hear from an expert.
Yeah, happy to share my past learnings, mistakes I made, and obviously observation. So I think first of all, been in the education technology industry for 18 years, and throughout this time, one very central philosophy that I've learned from and also tried to apply as best as I could is that education comes before the technology. That's why it's called EdTech. So we try to be very intentional about how and where we apply the technology to enhance the learning or the teaching. So typically this goes into a few buckets, which is fundamentally about increasing content mastery, improving efficiency, and then obviously, in terms of finally resulting in terms of higher learning outcomes. So these are the central tenets of any learning technology that I've been involved in through the years. When I started the business 4 years ago, after leaving Samsung, what really got us going, my team members and myself, what really got us going was the opportunity to apply this very nascent technology, augmented and virtual reality, to make learning, as you mentioned before, Juliana, experiential. Never before have we seen a medium of delivery of content in the digital format that is potentially so engaging, right? That it makes the interaction very light and very close to the real thing. Not as close, obviously, but getting there. But at least it's something. There is, if you compare to your next best alternative, if you don't have something that you can really see, touch, and feel, this is really the next best alternative. I'll give you a case in point. Jellyfish, starfish, in one of the series on aquatic creatures that we work on, we want to showcase starfish. I wonder how many parents here knows how starfish eats. So we actually have the 3D model in AR that showcase how the starfish throws out its stomach, cover out its prey or food, and then bring that stomach back into the jellyfish body and then digest it. I mean, even if you have a real life starfish, in front of you, aquarium or wherever, you are unlikely to observe or see that in action. So these are the kind of things that really brings the concept and the ideal to life. So in terms of immersiveness, I think what it does is that it really brings it to life. Number two, because of the engaging type of the media, it really helps the students to better visualize it and understand it. And then increasingly, research is coming out to show that somehow when you are interacting with content in a spatial kind of model, 3D, you are using different parts of your brain compared to just reading. Reading is fantastic, it's fundamental skill set. But somehow when you're using spatial recognition, a different part of your brain is activated. And that helps in terms of longer term memory retention. So there are tons of research that are coming out in those areas. So we tried our best to be very intentional about how and when we applied. And obviously, our publishing and our editorial and subject matter experts keep us very honest also They do not want any bells and whistles. They want us to keep to the spirit of the book, which Ruth has laid out very nicely. And what we have done, in my opinion, coming together is make magic happen. So the best of the print world and the best of the digital world, and hopefully these two combined together really engage the kids, get them excited, get them curious, and then get them engaged and learn in a fun, playful manner.
Thanks for sharing, Gerald. You clearly are very bullish about the use of augmented reality in learning. I know you mentioned about a starfish in the book. If it's possible, could you just share with us, more examples of how AR is being used in this book? And because AR requires a mobile device or iPad or some sort, what age groups then does this book or combination of AR and reading apply to? Could you give us also an age range? So basically what I'm asking is examples of how AR was used in the book, and for parents of young children, which age group is appropriate to introduce them to the AR function. My daughter has read the book, but I have not even identified that there is more to this book, the AR function. Would you like to share, right, Gerald?
Yeah, sure. So what happened is that we are very mindful of screen time. Right. And in my previous life in a corporate, I'm a big proponent of meaningful playtime and healthy digital habits. Right. So that same philosophy carries through. So again, we are very intentional in terms of the design of the 3D models. It is meant to complement and augment the key learning point or the concepts. It's not meant to take over. So an example, the human heart, right? Instead of trying to just read and understand everything from the illustration and the text, now you are able to see in three-dimensional format. So it's almost again impossible to really manipulate actual heart in any way, even for a high school student, I would say, right? So this is where the augmented reality comes in really well. In terms of age group, I think the age group for this series, and Ruth may want to jump in later, I think it covers anywhere from the primary school all the way to perhaps even younger folks who are able to read a little bit. So from my perspective, the AR experience from a device is still not the most ideal, but we have what we have, which is the device-based AR. Until such day and time comes when the AR glasses comes out mainstream, then it will be a completely game changer. But for now, we do what we can with what most people have, which is the device on hand. And what it does is that the user take the mobile phone, they scan the page, the 3D model or the AR effect pops out, and they can manipulate and interact with it. Well, one good thing is if we are talking about slightly older kids, they are already familiar with AR because they are using Snapchat, they're using TikTok, they are using your emojis from your Apple phones, iPhones, etc. So they are already familiar with AR. They may not know it's called AR, but they are already familiar with that effects. So it is a very natural extension of their behavior. So as parents, even including myself included, try not to let the kids be using device too much. But at the same time, from a technology's perspective, I think it's important for them to be kind of exposed to it. Not to be addicted, obviously, but you do need to let them be exposed to all these new technologies that are coming out, because by the time they grow up, this kind of things will become second nature to them.
Gerald, you didn't even mention Pokemon Go, which I know many children, young and old, are sort of crazy about. Thank you for sharing. I learned a lot about augmented reality from you. I mean, this might be a good moment for Ruth to share with us what she thinks about AR in these books, because I certainly, as a publisher myself, think of AR as a game changer, allowing us to take something from 2D into 3D and animate it and make it interactive. Ruth, would you like to share what you think of the AR function?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the AR elements in the book really help to bring the book to the next level. As a person with editorial background, of course, I'm definitely very confident that the base material, so the actual printed material, just the stories, the content, of the printed material is can stand on its own. But to have that additional bonus, I think is very special. It makes the book stand out, and it does, as Gerald mentioned, bring another level to learning.
Mm.
Mm.
Thank you for sharing. I'm looking at the audience. Is there any questions? I've asked, prompted our audiences for questions. And if not, I would like to invite, at the end of our panel, thank you panelists for speaking. Maybe before we end, I would like to ask all four of you, Kelvin, Edmund, Gerald, and Ruth, to give me, a little bit of a word or phrase to describe how you think of science education in your work, because you range from publishers to writers to bloggers and of course AR. Just give me a word to close our panel. And I'm going to start with Kelvin. So a word or a phrase to describe your journey as an educator and parent.
I think the word that has accompanied me throughout these years is experiment.
Experiment, I like that.
Yes, because even the kids can use it, or I can use it on my own, because back in 16 years ago when I first started blogging was just really an online diary, right?
Yes.
16 years ago there was
blogspot.com, right?
Yes, correct. So there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't even WhatsApp, there wasn't Instagram, right? So you can't send photos or videos through WhatsApp like how we can do it nowadays. So that's why I started a blog, because I had relatives living overseas, and that was the only means where I could post pictures of my kids and they could see it via the web. So I think but throughout the years, obviously I've my blog has evolved and to become a portal where I think I would like to think so that parents come to my portal, for tips, for recommendations on where do they bring their kids. So I think, and I've been experimenting all these years, like what kind of places that parents like to bring their kids. And as after being a parent for 16 years, I think, that is also very apt for the kids, because throughout their course of learning, be it from primary school, PSLE, even now my eldest is in O levels, I think you have to have that love for experiment, so that you'll be game to try out new things. Yeah.
Thank you, Kelvin. Experiment is what Kelvin thinks of his journey as a parent and a blog, and also as a parent blogger, daddy blogger. How about Edmund? Give us a word or a phrase to close about your journey in science communication to your students, and also as a principal.
I think the word will be enjoy.
Enjoy.
Right? I think
we are all on the ease now.
Yeah, because I think it's important for students to enjoy what they learn, so that it's not just a once-off effort at maybe learning a certain fact, but it's an ongoing journey where you engage with the subject, you have fun learning it, you go back to it, and in that sense, we can then promote this joyous lifelong learning, which is one of the school values we have, right? But it's something that I truly believe in. Because when you enjoy something, you have fun. You want to spend time doing it. If you want to spend time doing it, you actually grow, right, in knowledge or in understanding. So for me, one experience I had with the books was that I really enjoyed it, because it was, even as an adult, right, it was in a cartoon form, very reader friendly, bite size. There was a sense of humor, and they wove the science facts in such an engaging manner that I had fun. So I actually finished the book, in one sitting, just because it's one episode led to another, so there are different anecdotes and episodes. So in that sense, it sort of like brought out again the child in me, that enjoyed reading comics.
I'm happy to hear that you yourself enjoyed reading the book. We were, so there's still an inner child in you. That's wonderful, and definitely we must enjoy learning. If not, it would be very difficult for us as educators to help our children learn. Thank you, Edmund, for joining us today. And next we have Gerald. How about you? What would be the word or phrase that describes your journey?
Okay, so I'm not a very good student, so I will bend the rules. I will say that instead of a word or phrase, it's a dictum that we hold very true, personally and also from a company's perspective. So this ancient dictum from Confucius, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. So we try to use that very much in terms of our technology development, and even in my own teaching to my kids, getting them to do things hands-on, no talk, less talk but more doing. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Gerald.
That's our approach.
Thank you very much, Gerald. It's a very interesting and nuanced end to our conversation. Appreciate you joining our panel today. And last but not least, a very quick word or phrase from Ruth.
Yeah, well, I'm going to choose a word with many syllables, which is intentionality. I think that has defined my parenting role. And yeah, I'd like to encourage all parents out there to be intentional in what materials they buy for their kids in terms of books, or like the conversations, as I mentioned before, the observations that you can make. So many opportunities to have teachable moments, right?
Absolutely agree.
And definitely for science, it's so easy, because it's observations all around us. So intentionality would be my word.
Wonderful and very important, and apt, considering that this is a book about scientific content that is well vetted and with augmented reality features. And with that, I would like to thank our 4 panelists for joining me this evening on a chat about education, preschooler education and publishing children's books. Kelvin, Edmund, Gerald, Ruth, it has been my pleasure. And my name is Juliana Chan. I'm the CEO of Wild Type Media Group. It was my pleasure being a moderator with you this evening. Good evening and have a nice day.
Thank you, Juliana.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Juliana. I just want to say a quick final word to close our event today. So thank you everyone for coming, for taking the time, and I hope that you have picked up some interesting information, some encouragement, some tips, and you're ready to head out there into the world of science and explore the world of science with your kids as well. So just one last slide that we have for you. Once again, this series of books is out, and you can find out more about these books if you scan the QR code. So with that, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming. Thank you once again, Juliana, for being a wonderful moderator, and everybody as well, panelists and attendants as well. So thank you very much, and hope you have everybody have a good evening.